The bookshelf background? Why that must mean... Yes! Favorite Books Review has returned! Hold it. My triumphant return to book reviewing requires an intro that was not made on iMovie. How about this? In my last book review I said it might be a while before I got to my next one, but I am here with the next book review on Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. As I also said in the last video, the book is long, complicated, and Russian. As such, I'm going to put a disclaimer right at the beginning of this book review. A lot of the names in this book are very long and have a lot of consonants. Therefore, I am probably going to butcher the pronunciations. I apologize in advance. Please don't leave me comments saying that I'm butchering the pronunciations. I know. No background in Russian whatsoever. Before I get into a review of the book itself, I have to tell you the definition of a word. The word is nihilism, or nihilism, or something. We'll just say nihilism. It's a word that is mentioned a lot within this book and a lot in reference to this book. Nihilism is a philosophy, and it's basically the idea that life is meaningless. Life has no purpose, we don't live for any other reason other to exist, and therefore we are not subject to any kind of moral code or laws or anything like that. And during the time period in which this novel was written, nihilism was kind of making a sweep of Russia. Enter Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov is the protagonist of this novel, and we're introduced to him kind of arbitrarily. We're kind of just plopped right into the middle of his story. At the beginning of the book, we don't really know anything about him other than he's a hypochondriac, he is deeply in debt, and he talks to himself quite a lot. And this entire book is basically an exploration and an analysis of his character. We learn something new about him with pretty much every section. Even the epilogue is introducing new facets of his character that we had not previously seen. In the very beginning section of the book, Raskolnikov commits a double murder. He plans and executes the murder of the old pawnbroker who he has been pawning his possessions to in order to keep up with the rent. And this leads him to also murder her sister, who unfortunately just happens to walk in at the wrong time. The rest of the book sees Raskolnikov coming to terms with the fact that he has taken a human life. And about halfway through the novel, it's revealed that Raskolnikov, while he was a student, wrote an article, which was later published in an academic journal, which kind of presented this theory about crime and punishment. Basically saying that most criminals, once they have committed their crime, will ultimately punish themselves. And now Raskolnikov finds himself living this theory. This story is told in two distinct different styles. There's the crime style and the punishment style. The crime style is extremely analytical. It almost reads like a police report. Exact, objective actions of whoever happens to be involved in the scene. The punishment style is the style where we explore the psychology of Raskolnikov and some of the other characters. So it's full of emotion and philosophy, and it's usually told by way of a character monologue. Pages and pages of nothing but speech. There's a drunken ramble in chapter 2, there are various expositions of criminal theory from the detective on the murder case, and of course there are the many, many times when Raskolnikov is talking to himself. These pages of dialogue can get very tedious, but this is where the heart of the novel lies, because this is what is ultimately exploring the psychology of the various characters. Now, there are two other stories that are interwoven with the main story in this book. The main story is, of course, Raskolnikov. The second story is that of Marmeladov. Marmeladov is a former government clerk who has lost his job due to basically laziness and drunkenness. He has a wife and children. They all live in poverty because Marmeladov simply cannot support them because of his drinking habit. In a sense, Marmeladov has also fallen victim to a nihilist way of thinking. He doesn't really believe that he bears any kind of responsibility. As such, Marmeladov eventually gets himself so drunk that he wanders into the middle of the road, is run over by a carriage, and eventually dies. So he commits a crime as well. His crime is negligence, and that negligence eventually destroys him and destroys his wife. Though ironically, not his daughter, who actually becomes Raskolnikov's savior in the end of the story. And the third story is that of Svidrigailov. Svidrigalov's crime is unfaithfulness. He was married, his wife died under mysterious circumstances, he took numerous mistresses, and his most recent passion is, unfortunately for Raskolnikov's sister, Donia. Svidrigaïlov feels that he has no moral obligation to stay faithful to his wife, and this is the only way that he knows how to live. As such, Dunia ultimately rejects him, leading Svidrigaïlov to kill himself. So Marmeladov and Svidrigaïlov are the cautionary tales for Raskolnikov. And through them, we see that Raskolnikov's ultimate crime is not the double murder. His ultimate crime, according to Dostoevsky, is falling victim to the nihilist way of thinking. Dostoevsky's ultimate point in this book is to tell us that nihilism is bunk. And not just bunk, but ultimately a destructive idea. Raskolnikov begins feeling that life is meaningless several months before he actually commits the murder. In each section of the novel, Raskolnikov has to fight this personal battle within himself. And throughout the novel, we watch him go from this person who is extremely self-centered, who is very much trying to cut himself off from the world, and turn into the person that he once was when he was a student at the university. This book is a fascinating character analysis of Raskolnikov, and I could go on for much, much longer about some of the fascinating stuff in this book, but I think you get the point. So, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky is still very much a favorite. If you ever do get a chance to read it, give yourself some time. It takes a while to get through just because there's so much stuff in it, but it's ultimately worth it. The next several books on the favorites list are going to focus on dystopian societies, beginning with Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. With any luck, it won't take me almost 2 months to finish reading this one. See you next time. I'm not gonna lie, that drift is one of the most bizarre things I've seen. You don't really get a feel for it on the camera, but it's pretty weird.